Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Well, are you living the fourth way? Now, this is the most practical way of dealing with society and getting ahead in general. Most people are forced to do this. The fourth way is when you live in a society and benefit from all of the things that society has to offer you. And there's a lot that if you isolate yourself to a particular group, that is very unfulfilling. And I've been studying the Amish, and I'm going to be doing a video on the Amish very soon for about 15 or 20 years there. About 15, 20 years ago, they had an awful lot of shows on TV, reality shows following Amish that got out of their communities and joined the regular society. And the Amish are kind of interesting, and believe it or not, they're a really big group that is enlarging dramatically. I'm very surprised at that in one ways and not in another, and I'll cover all this in the fourth way. But these are a very interesting group, and I've always enjoyed fanatics. I don't care who they are. I like fanatics that really believe in their purpose and supposedly are single-minded and are willing to do whatever it takes to die for their cause. I don't care what causes it. I've always admired them. Because this is something you don't see in society. Society is a bunch of milquetoast people that go along so their life is fine. And they really, a lot of people stress they believe in things, but, we have a very horribly corrupt society. And particularly in the United States, and everybody in the United States considers themselves basically religious, no matter what their belief is. And all these religions are pretty much the same. There's very little difference between conservative Jew and a Muslim. I mean, that may sound bizarre, but I've researched that recently. And they almost have the exact same customs. It's very, very interesting. All they do is change their god names. And of course, you get in all these religions, they're all basically the same, teaching the same thing, and they want to point out their differences because they want to feel special and egotistical that they're better than the other guy. So we have all that, but we have a very corrupt society. And when you look at these people and you say, "Gee, these people are corrupt." Bill Gates, his family is Catholic, and we can go through all of these people and we can find out exactly what their belief systems are. But if you go through all these corrupt people, whether they're firemen or police or your local criminal doctors, they all are following religions. And if you go even further than that, all the people that go to their companies and work for them are all thought, well, they haven't done anything. 7,000 years of organized religion, going back to Buddhism, 4,000 Judaism, etc. We have come to the great world we have today. Wars going on. We're at a nuclear war brink, which I don't really believe, but we certainly have enough fighting going on. And of course, we love to spend our money on killing each other instead of making nice places to live and having better food and maybe all the good things like giant hospitals to take care of it. No, I need my dollar to kill somebody. So the whole idea is we get into all these things that we have. So the hypocritical reality of society is pretty frightening. And this goes for most of the world. When you get into certain societies that are even all of one religion and so forth, well, they have lots of crime. They have lots of problems. There's all sorts of personal perversions going on in every religion. So again, that's the same old story. So you would think that living in a community of like-minded people would be good. I used to say this as a youthie all the time, wouldn't it be? But, I got to know these groups and I got to know the people involved, and I sure as hell don't want to live with these people. And I'm not really sure they had my particular belief system to begin with. I have a very unique Gnostic belief system that I teach in my Inner Order, my Patreon, and throughout my websites, which has a very unique view. And it is a fourth world view. It's very difficult to get people together. And if you do and you have a lot of money, that, again, doesn't solve any problems. All the communes, which is another understanding things, that is going on is the fact that there is a serious problem with the fact that people don't get along. And I've traced this, though, all the communes, which I guess people don't understand what communes and stuff are in general. You don't necessarily live in one giant community. I mean, I've always believed in the compound. You have one piece of property, everybody has their own houses and their own goods, etc. And there are a lot of communities like that. The Amish are like that. They don't live in one giant house. They have their own little family, and this is critical to understand. We have to fully believe that. So we have to understand what is going on there. It's very important that we understand that. So I've heard people talk, and one guy was saying, "Well, I don't want to give up my car." Well, you're not going to give up your car. You don't have to give up any of your possessions per se. This is an old way of thinking. You have to define, well, what does this group really do? There are some groups even today that say you should give up all your wealth, but the problem is that these groups that stated that in the past were very wealthy, and they took care of you from cradle to grave. I'm not sure that that is appropriate now, because you can never, groups are based on leaders. The minute the leaders have problems or so forth, and nobody has enough money to sustain anything. Unless you're a real radical, huge community. The Amish, of course, are breeding like crazy, like the Mormons did, and they are creating their own community. And I expect in the future that the Amish will be very similar to the Mormons in numbers and power. And they're everywhere around the world. This is something that we have to understand at a bigger level. So with all that, it's very, very important that we know that. So the reality of it all is quite frightening when you look at the realities of it. But do you really want to give up everything that society offers you? Now, people can say that society is very evil and you don't want to be part of it. Well, in the bigger picture, that's right. And the less contact you have with it, to a large extent, the better. But there's awful lot of goods and services that you get in general society that are important. And the fact is, should you only believe in your system? Well, these people that want to isolate you from the outside, and the Amish have found this because they let their people go out, and if you want to leave, you want to leave. And I think that's a good idea. I don't think people should be staying in a community that they're really not happy with. And they think that, the grass is always greener on the other side of the wall, so they allow them to do it. And I don't know what percentage of people tend to stay away from the Amish community once they have a taste of the regular world, but from what I understand, it's not as big as you think it is. Because it's nice to live in a closed community. It's very safe. You don't have to worry about a job. You don't have to worry about a place to live or eat, etc. And you have a community that supports you pretty much very easily. You also have to follow certain rules, and you have to give up what are certain other things. And are those important? Now, in the fourth way, you don't give up any of that stuff. You try and keep your contact with negative organizations and people as much as you can. So you stay away from trouble if you can. And of course, as long as the trouble's out there, you always potentially have a problem. So this is something that we have to be very, very careful of. But what does that all mean? That all means that there is a serious problem with people and the outside world. Well, this has always been the case. And it depends on if you're part of the outside world or not. The American Indians did this, but the American government decided, and they agreed with the Indians, that they wouldn't draft them, but they went ahead and draft them anyway. And they treat you horrible as well. So a lot of times you can't get out and staying in your own people. I haven't found that there are any, quote, good people. There are good individuals. So if you're counting on someone of your particular nationality, race, or anything else to back you up, most likely they can be bought off for a very small amount of money, and they're going to go to get support from the bigger group of people. The bigger group of people is where they're going to try and do everything from. So, and then they are going to stab you in the back. And this is so true that it isn't even funny. So as a person that is seeking to, of course, you want to get the same input and so forth. And I watched this with the groups that I was involved in. And the more radical they are, and the more they are against society, the more nutty these people are. They have all sorts of very bizarre belief systems, particularly when it comes to their own sexuality and everything else. Most of these particularly right-wing Christian white groups were a bunch of perverts screwing everybody because they had nothing better to do. And they really didn't believe in anything except the fact that they wanted to have power over someone else. And you got to be careful of these groups. They end up, because to keep control of a group, you have to be pretty much of a dictator. And this corrupts you, and then you start to use everybody. And when you get stuck in a group and you don't have money in any place to go to, this can be very dangerous that you're stayed in it. Groups like David Koresh, I don't know how many people remember him. This is where the Waco, where they murdered his group and a whole bunch of children, where the feds came in with tanks. Well, you say, well, this was a good guy who's fighting against all that. Well, it wasn't. This guy was a deviant. He also would not only preach to people for 12 hours at a time, he owned all the women. So you didn't have a wife, he slept with everybody. And of course, once you sleep with the adult women, it gets down to the point you start sleeping with anybody, including all the children. So he had a real problem with that. He was a nutcase. He lived in luxury while everybody else, because he was in Texas, he lived in a nice air-conditioned place. He was able to go out and get the things that they weren't able to, things like McDonald's, and he had all that stuff, and he was special. And it's amazing how people go along with this. Amazing how people will give their wives up, their children up, and support someone like that. So this is the problem with groups, and a lot of them are like that. But you do have a different structure when you get into the Mormons and the Amish, etc. But there are a lot of problems in these organizations. The problem is that since these organizations all recruit from the human race, there's a serious problem, because the human race is intrinsically evil. So what does all this mean? But the Amish are very, very interesting. I mean, they seem to be a tough group as well. I just saw a show on them where they actually went into the jungles of Central America, and we're going to start a community. But, all they need is tools. As long as there's water there and basic ways to grow and some food, they are happy to go ahead and do it. Very interesting. Very, very, talk about getting away from public and being self-supportive. But you got to remember, that is no electricity. That's no anything else. I guess they build their own toilets, etc. when they have time, but all the things that go with that. This is a primitive lifestyle. Now, is that smart to do? And what is that doing, isolating yourself, not from society and their philosophical opinions, but from the good things that society has made? And what society has made are products and services to a large degree. Of course, some of these services, and the more you mix with society, the more you can potentially get into problems, be assaulted, murdered, robbed, raped, whatever you want to say. And if you're going to a job, you're dependent upon their particular belief systems, and you don't have the support of your community. So there's a lot of pros and cons. But the bottom line, if you're a Gnostic, as I am, seeking only thing that has divinity is truth, well, you're going to have a lot of problems seeing truth in these communities because they don't allow you to do anything else. I think the Amish only get up to 8th grade, 6th grade, I'm not sure, because they don't believe education past that is important. Well, there's a lot of truth to that. Once you know how to read, write, and do basic arithmetic, what do you need? You need all that other stuff? Yeah, I took trigonometry, and it's the best math I ever learned. I think I used it never. So you need that. Do you really need to know the history of the world or anything else to a certain degree? Well, the problem is it keeps you in a very backward way of thinking. So, and as I said, I'm going to go into that with the Amish in general. So the point is you don't know nothing. Basically, the Amish, and can be shown in their shows and everything else, were very simpletons. They were stupid people. All they did, since they didn't really have anything else, was work all the time. Again, giving them a false opinion by society, which prizes work, because everybody thinks the other guy's a bum. On the other hand, if you don't have anything to do and you have no entertainment or anything else, well, then the bottom line is that all you do is work. And this is the reason why these people tend to be successful. I'm not sure maybe they have Sundays off, but the bottom line is, they just work and work and work, and they have no other interest. They also don't read anything but their particular type of German Bible. And we'll go into all that stuff. But the fourth way is about enjoying life, trying not to get entangled, and this is the key to it. So if you're driving down the streets, you could be embroiled in a serious lawsuit. Somebody hits you. Now, it's not your fault, but somebody comes and you get hit in a car accident. You could then be highly disabled. Now, accidents and other things in other communities, of course, happen as well. But you're driving around the streets. There are millions of cars around you. You could easily do that. So you could become, which ties you into the system. You could become hurt. You're going to need medical insurance. You're going to get involved with the deep, dark evils of society when you get involved in all these things. You're going to have to sue that person, or they're going to sue you, or something comes up. So now you're embroiled in the evilness of that society because you are functioning in it. And that's the dangers of it. The good part of it is that if you are a Gnostic and seeking truth and can figure your way through the system, you can learn how to use it. But of course, you have absolutely no support, and you have to compromise all of your dignity to survive many times, which is what pretty much regular society does. Because 99.9% of all society is dirty, corrupt, evil people. They're all bought off to a large extent. They're also blackmailed, and there's the social pressure where they'll send all sorts of people after you if you don't do what that they tell you to do. This is a fact that you don't believe. All your doctors are feeding narcotics to gangs because the gangs go in there, and the police know that, and the police benefit from it. So these are the things with a highly corrupt society that you're hoping is minimized or eliminated in a group. And I don't know if they are or not. I think to a certain degree. I don't know if they went to the Amish and tried to blackmail them, what they would do. They seem to be relatively easy to be victimized. I wonder how many Amish are attacked, assaulted, and raped in general, that people don't go into their communities. I don't know if they fight back or not. But you could potentially go into an Amish house, steal everything, rape everybody, and get away with it. I don't know. I don't know what they feel about that or talk about that, and you'd think that would be a little more public. But these are the things you get out there that you can eliminate if you're in a group. So groups always sound very good, but the people involved in them are tended to be the lowest common denominator people. But if you're not a really special person and you don't really have any great beliefs, so joining a community like that, of course, gives you a certain amount of security and support. There's an awful lot of incest and bestiality in the Amish community as well, because that's the only thing they have to do. So it's a real problem. So there is no, as long as you're dealing with the human race, there are no particular benefits from being involved in those communities. So having the fourth way, meaning you can enjoy going to a bookstore, getting vast amounts of information to improve your consciousness and spirituality, being able to eat at a wide variety of restaurants. And that doesn't mean picking fast foods, which pollutes you. Again, that's one of the dangers in society if you're not Gnostic and looking for truth. Truth is that fast food is bad for you. So you eat better food. You don't have to eat fast food all the time and cater to your lower self. Now they stopped that in the Amish country because they don't have no restaurants there. So it's your community. You make all your own stuff. So again, you're getting that type of thing. But you're living in a very basically with all these cults, whether they are, even the Mormons are like this. The Mormons tend to go with the fourth path. They are living in society. Then they go and get their support from a particular group of people. Now, I much prefer that in general because it's nice to have a support, a group you can go to protect you in a very evil society. So there's a lot of benefits to the Mormon type path. If that's something you can stand the Mormons in there. They also have their own goofy stuff that you have to deal with. And again, they have all their problems. They have all the same homosexuals, deviants, etc. And these have been noted through many different Mormons. And of course, you have to obey their laws or they throw you out. And of course, this is, you have to throw people out that don't conform to what you want. So all of these have their pros and cons. The fourth way, of course, is the best if you can eliminate it. But you're also taking on a lot of insecurity and the ability to become easily blackmailed. If you're not part of their society, you don't get jobs, you have everybody after you, and they will organize a complete town against you, the evil people you're going in. This is the way things work. Now, you may not know that, but that's how it is. So, but the whole idea is basically the Mormons are the fourth way. And that would be the best way if you can get a group together. So you get a group together of like-minded people that help each other in need, that are a support system, yet you're living in regular society. And using the facilities of that. I'm assuming that Mormons, of course, they try and support their own people. I'm assuming doctors, etc. But you have that. You can basically go to any restaurant you want, eat whatever you want. Generally, of course, for the Mormons, you don't drink caffeine or alcohol which generally means they are big consumers of sugar. But all of that is the fourth type way of operating. The problem is if you're not in with a group like this, you're unlikely to ever get one going. So the individual fourth way is how most people operate. And most people who come from any kind of background, a mommy and a daddy, and any kind of basic support system, tend to stay in this weak fourth way reality. And of course, they're very easily blackmailed. They're very weak people, etc. So getting together as an informal fourth way group is a very empowering and very difficult to do, because the people who really want to work together, they're already Mormons and Amish or whatever else. So the people you get that don't want to join and don't want to support, which is so true, and all generally are not going to group together, and they're going to have a very mediocre level of support. While in these other organizations, people jump in and work to the highest. They do whatever they can to support the larger group, and that's what they are very much about. But you can't get that for people who are not. So people who don't like regular society and then try and go to alternative groups like my own are generally people that are very unsupportive. There's always the few good people, but generally even the people that join in different areas, it's very limited commitments that you have. And nor are you asking for the sky, but these kind of people would generally not give you anything. Well, in other groups like the Mormons, there's a lot to do. You got to pay 10% of your salary, and they check this. They expect you to do missionary work for 3 years, and that 3 years you dedicate yourself to missionary work, which means you're out trying to find new Mormons. And you pay for your support and everything you need. They don't give you a nickel. Very interesting that they do it, but they're forcing you that if you want the benefits of Mormonism to do it. And that's what I've always liked about Mormonism, and they have a lot of good systems, but on the other hand, they are also very ignorant people and have a very brainwashed way of thinking about things. Mormonism is extremely occult. The founder and they wear underwear with sigils, but they hate occultism. So the whole idea is that they don't quite understand lots of these things, and they're not very friendly about it. But it is certainly an interesting little group, and you could almost call them a gang. And they take care of their people. If you don't have a job, they tend to give you a job while you look for another one. This is all a fantastic support system, and something that in this day and age is highly needed. All that for a minimum amount of commitment. But, people don't want to give 10% of their salary. They're not very committed, because that money goes to everybody. Generally it doesn't go into people's pockets that I'm aware of. And they are a little club to take care of each other. I remember working for Marriott Hotels, a Mormon organization, and nobody in that organization that had any kind of serious job was not a Mormon. So they hired a lot of regular people. I'm sure they did that because of criticisms. But if you were a maid or a front desk person at these hotels, well, these people came from all walks of life, but including the Mormons. But generally, any even low-level management, everybody's a Mormon. Now, I understand that as well, and that's how you build a powerful organization. So that's all the things that go on there with those types of things. But the fourth way, of course, this is what most people choose, especially if you come from a family that isn't connected to any of this stuff, and you have that reality to it. Of course, there's a lot of benefits to that. To keep the main problem with all these groups is they put a lock on your mind. The lock on your mind is very, very simple. You are unable to do anything to actually be able to think differently. They don't want you reading other books. They have a particular Mormon doctrine that they're going to tell you what they believe. They don't like this. They have their own ways of treating. I mean, the Mormons were very big into stopping the passage of gay marriages. So, I mean, they spent millions and millions of dollars in California to block that. So they're very political. They have a very anti-gay, even though there's a lot of gays in the Mormons, like everything. It's 30 to 40% of the population. So that means there's a whole bunch of them in there. They also lock everybody together in a giant family unit. You're going to have 8 or 9 kids. This is typical of Mormons. So they keep breeding more and more Mormons. And of course, there are a few Mormons to take up with that, because they're not growing as a church, at least not in the United States. But the whole idea is that Um, these are so they lock you into these thinking. So if you're into metaphysics or anything else, this of course is considered evil because they have a very shallow viewpoint of what God empowerment is. So all of that's evil, and if you use the word psychic or anything, this is all the problems with them. So it's really difficult for an alternative metaphysical person to want to become a Mormon. They're not going to approve that. So they're going to either throw you out or not allow you in the church in general. They're not into any of that stuff. They're going to label it as horrible demonic practices. I think it comes down to the fact they don't want their individual people empowered enough to be working on their own. They want you to be as all religions do. And the reason why that Amish don't use technology is they want you dependent on the community. You don't want to get, now I don't know if they use tractors or not, but let's just use it, I think by horse drawn, but they don't want you to get a motorized thing. They want you to call 2 or 3 other people within the community and have them help you. Again, this kind of makes sense, even though it doesn't, I think, in the bigger picture. So what they do is they close you off to really high levels. Now, if you're on the independent path, you're trying to get to the high level. You're trying to go up in extreme empowerments, and you're trying to ascend out of prison camp earth. You're not trying to make your journey here better. You're trying to get out of here. So that's part of the fourth way and something that you're interested in. Not. The whole idea is that you're not changing the society by becoming a group of people that work a little better than the evil general society. You're into getting to a level and ascending out of this particular prison and evil place you're living in. And that, of course, is your very Gnostic viewpoint. That everything here, regardless of the veneer of looking like a pilgrim woman, and who isn't turned on by that? So the whole idea is that instead of having that, you're trying to get away from the whole thing. It isn't about living this divine life based on a very silly book, but it's about escaping the reality of this to a whole better reality. You're never going to change this reality. There is no changing this world. And these people could be very victimized as well. I mean, they really have no power. It's the group. And as I said, I'm not sure what they do and what they're forced to do. I believe they have to pay income tax. I don't know if they can go into the military, if they're forced to do that or not. All of these things we just don't know. So you're always tied into society one way or another, like they did to the American Indians. But you still can pretty much live a certain reality that you. Now, is that reality good if you don't have a choice of anything else? If you have if you can't read the books of Buddha and make your judgment of whether that's good, you can only have one book and that's it, and they don't teach you to learn anything else. And of course, that's what they are. So all of these people stop learning at the age at I think it's seventh grade. And since that happens, they are very ignorant. Should you not use the good things that I consider all come from God? Anything that's good comes from the positive or the light. Everything evil comes from the dark. I mean, it's a very simple process to understand. So if there's anything intrinsically evil about products, about a washing machine, about electricity, well, not really. I think these are conveniences. Wouldn't that give you more time to study the Bible? But they're not interested in going to higher spiritual paths. They're interested. They have their spiritual path, and they just want to stay on that in a very pretty much first grade level, and that's how they think. And people have been persecuted for having phones and other things. Are all these things bad? Well, I don't think so. And I don't think that following a path without temptation is a very strong path. So the less temptation you have, the more you are locked into a group and basically a slave there. So if they think phones and other things are bad, well, the point is that why? So this can be helpful. And oftentimes they bend the rules to get places. Like they can't own, some can. And of course, as usual, all these kind of religious cults vary dramatically. Some have cars, some don't. Some use electrical, some don't. So, I mean, they modify themselves. And of course, to that makes sense as well. So a group gets together and say, well, it's kind of silly not having a washing machine. Why don't we do that? But we don't want to give up our faith. This I understand as well. So these are all the things, but they trap you in a low-level consciousness, and you're basically the leaders of these communities are some of the lowest common-level people you're going to meet. They're just into dogma. They don't understand anything but following what the dogma tells them. That is not an ascending soul. So they're going to be stuck in this reality for eternity. So we all have to understand that in the bigger picture. So the fourth way, of course, the fourth Gnostic way, exposing yourself to anything, gaining knowledge every day, and empowering yourself to a higher level, controlling society so that you can live in an honest, good fashion, is all the things that you're striving to do as you are seeking basically ascension so that you can leave this particular place. Now, ascension is very easy. Getting to the consciousness state so ascension works for you is difficult. You have to give up all the thinking that you have that society is brainwashed because you're living in an urban legend. That urban legend tells you how to operate, what is real and what's not real. That's not knowing truth. So until you know truth, you'll never ever ascend. It has nothing to do with some goofy techniques and talking to the aliens and all these fields of energies that some frauds like to, but it has nothing to do with that. Nobody wants an ascended being that thinks like the beings here just because you do some practical stuff. The fact is you are not ascension material if you're following regular society and believe what regular society tells you. That you believe that McDonald's is a health food, that all these religions are the way, all of this stuff. If you believe in any of that, if you have any faith in anything human built and believe that it is good, you're never going to ascend. You have to reject everything and disconnect yourself from this entire reality. Now, the problem is when you're an Amish or a Mormon, you are connecting yourself and rooting yourself to this particular planet at a very high level. So you'll never ever ascend with these kind of and escape this reality. So again, there is no changing. There's only escape, and you can do that following the fourth way and disconnecting yourself. Do you believe in all that nonsense you were taught as a child, and as society continues to brainwash you with all the news out there telling you this is true and that is true, and yeah, you believe it? Well, the point is that it is not true. You have to find the truth that is out there, and that is very difficult because you're going to have all sorts of people and brainwashing that's going to tell you lies that you live in. You live in a total lie that you think is 100% facts. That's when you ascend. When you're able to understand that and start looking at everything that comes to you in that particular Gnostic fashion, that's when you ascend, and that's what the doing the fourth way is all about, by working within society. And this has, as I said, a lot of potential benefits with getting products and services and general entertainment. Does this make you a problematic? Well, it does offer a lot of temptation. You can fall into drugs and sex and things very, very easily because you're exposed to it. Well, isn't that all the point? Do you really want somebody who lives in a little house that never sees the outside? Can they be judged as a good person? Well, they don't even know anything else. So there certainly isn't any kind of understanding of the world. You do what you're told. You're a Robotron. You are worthless in the bigger picture. And the whole idea is being involved in that kind of society breeds very stupid people that do the same things all the time. It's unfortunate. That's it. Just another one of the many traps to keep you from ascending. Until next time.